Hi, it's Claudia from Create with Claudia, and today we are making a gorgeous quilt using a stack of 10-inch pre-cuts and a little bit of background fabric, and I'll show you how. So I'm back with another quilt. This time I'm doing something a little bit different, but I'm using 10-inch pre-cuts, a stack of them, and you can find them in every quilt shop. They're beautiful colors and patterns and that kind of thing. I am using the absolutely gorgeous new fabric line from Island Batik. It was designed by Tammy Silvers of Tamarinis. It is called Summer Twilight. I can't show you the fabric in person because I've already sewn it. So you'll see it when I'm sewing and I'll show you the top in a second. I'll show you a little hint of it right now. But it's called Summer Twilight. It is gorgeous. I'm showing a picture of the pack right now. Like I said, I've already used it, I've already cut it up, but I do want to show you just a hint of what you're going to see. Our project, every month the Island Batik ambassadors get challenged to do a project. June of 2023 was a Flying Geese. So what I'm going to do basically today is show you how to make this really easy quilt and show you how to do Flying Geese 4 at a time. But let me just show you just a hint of this gorgeous fabric. It is so pretty. The colors are these rich, deep, dark jewel tones. And there's some greens and purples and blues and teals and just you'll see them in a second. And you could see them in the snapshot a little bit too. A few months ago, I did a video a little bit like this where I used a 10-inch stack and I made just half square triangles. And that was a really successful video, which I really enjoyed making. I love bringing you these projects. This is a free pattern. You can download the PDF over on my website, but if you watch the whole video, it tells you exactly how to do it, and this is so easy to do. All right, so before I get started and show you actually how to do the Flying Geese 4 at a time, I'm just going to show you with some other fabric what you'll need to make this quilt. And you really don't need a lot. You need one stack of pre-cuts, and this is a gorgeous Island Batik. This is called Naturescape. I'm just going to show you this one really quickly. I have this one yet to be used, but I love this fabric. So you're going to need one pack of those. We're going to use 40 of the squares. So you're going to need 40 10-inch squares. So if you don't have a pre-cut stack, you can go ahead and make your own. You'll just need 40 squares that are cut 10-inch square. And packs are nice. They come with 42 squares usually, so you'll get 2 extra squares you can play with for something else. And then you just need some background fabric, and you'll need about 2 3/4 or 3 yards. I always like to play it safe and get a little bit of extra, but that's up to you. But you can get away with 2 3/4. But if it was me, I would buy 3 yards. Or you may have 3 yards on hand. And again, now I'm using black for the quilt I'm making today, but this I thought would look really pretty together. Maybe for a future quilt, maybe I'll do another one of these. So that's what you need to make the quilt top. It doesn't include the binding or the backing. And the quilt top measures about 60, I think it's like 65 by 80. Let me double check that really quickly. I just had to check on my software because I couldn't remember the exact measurements. It measures 64 by 80. So it's a nice large throw, really small twin. Well, I guess it's almost like a twin, but it's a really nice size. And I can't wait to show you how it turned out. These fabrics, these Tamarini fabrics, I'll show you one more time, are just luscious. They're just so pretty to work with. So get ready, because next I'm going to show you how to make Flying Geese 4 at a time. The blocks we are making are 4.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So one flying geese, or one flying goose, I guess, would be, let's see, just one, like this blue one right here. Like I said, I sewed these together, so it's kind of hard to tell. Let me just fold it up. This, as if you can tell, is one flying goose or one flying geese unit, and they will measure unfinished 4.5 by 8.5. So you get a nice longer quilt, and that's what yours should measure. And you can get all of that out of 1 square of 10-inch fabric and then 4 squares of 5 1/4 background fabric. All right, so here's my 10-inch square. Look at this gorgeous purple. It doesn't show real well on the camera. I wish you could see it. It's just a really rich sort of raspberry with a little bit of purples in it. So this is 10 inches square. It's one of those from that pack of stack of 10-inch squares. And then you need those 4 5 1/4 inch squares, and you're going to draw lines on the back of the 4 5 1/4 inch squares. I've already done it on 2 of these, but I'm going to do it on the other 2, just so you see. You need 4 of the 5 1/4 inch squares for each 10-inch square. So I'm going to just draw a line, and luckily I have a white pencil. Diagonal line, corner to corner, very easy. And that comes right out, you know. You won't see, number 1, it's on the back, and number 2, this is a water-soluble pencil, I think, or it's washable. And then we're going to do that again with the other one. All right, so now what we need is I don't need the pencil anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that so under the camera so you can see it. And then on one corner, I'm going to pin one of the squares I just drew that line on. It should line up. This is the beauty of this quilt, is you don't even need to trim down those 10-inch squares, unless of course they're miscut or something, but they should be 10 inches. And you're just going to pin that, line it up nice and even with the corner, and pin it. And then so it looks like that. And then I'm going to rotate it. And I'm going to pin another one on the opposite corner. Just making sure. Nice and lined up along here. And you can see how that line's going to go. It's straight across because we drew them nice and even. And you're going to pin this one. All right. There we go. So it's going to look like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew, almost like when you make 2 at a time half square triangles, but you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, a very scant 1/4 inch seam allowance along the drawn line on both sides. So you're going to have a seam on both sides, just right along there. And I'm going to do that really quickly and then show you what we do next. All right, so hopefully you can see that. You can definitely see my seams. I'm going to lift it up a little bit. There you can see I used that nice purple thread from Aurifil. But there it is. There's the line down the middle. Now I'm going to rotate it a little bit. Hopefully you can see it. And this ruler is not long enough. Let me get my longer ruler, because what you're going to do is you're going to get a longer ruler and split it on the drawn line. So this is 15 inches and it's just long enough. So you're going to line that up like so and get your rotary cutter just right on that drawn line, corner to corner. And you're going to split it in half like so. Very easy to do. And then I'm going to take it over and I'm going to press these down like this. So it's almost going to look, it reminds me a little bit of a rocket ship. I know that sounds weird. But anyway, I'm going to go press those down. All right, so there we go. There are the 2 units. That's what they look like. I'm just going to layer them on top. Then the next thing you want to do is you need those other 5 1/4 inch squares. And this time, you're going to place it in this corner. Sort of the empty corner is what I call it. Lining it up with the corners, smoothing it out. And you're going to pin here like this one. I pin far enough away from that middle line so I don't sew over the pin. I have sewn over the pin before. Not fun. The plastic part, it was very funny. There's one somewhere I kept it just for a laugh because it reminded me of that. And you're going to do the same thing on the other one. Okay, so now they're both pinned. Now what you're going to do is take it back over to your machine, and just like you did with the longer seam, you're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch along that drawn line on both sides, and you're going to do that on both of these. All right, so here we go. I removed the pins. You can I'm sure you can see it there. Let me lift it up. There's my seam on both sides. I did that twice. And now, like I did the last time, I'm going to cut it in half on that drawn line. And just right on that drawn line, split it in half. I will take these over and you're going to fold that down, and there you go. There's your Flying Geese unit. Your 8.5 by 4.5, finished 8 inches by 4 inches. And let me just split this one. There you go. So those are the 4 Flying Geese units. They still need to be trimmed down. So I'm going to go press those, come back, and we'll trim them down. That's sort of the trickiest part of this. All right, so here's one of them. Here are the other 4. They still need to be cut down, excuse me, the other 3. So to trim them, this is the tricky part. Let me line this up and make sure. Your ruler will help you, and you want to use, hopefully you have that 45-degree line on your ruler. This is a nice ruler because it has a little shaded area with your 1/4 inch seam allowance. What I do to help me, sort of guide me, and I'm not going to lie, these are very tight on this edge. Sometimes you don't even need to trim them. You might just want to trim off that little dog ear. In fact, this one you may not need to trim. You want to line that up with the point, that 1/4 inch right there at the point. Hopefully you can see that. Let me zoom in the camera a little bit. Maybe that'd be better. So you can see I've lined up that 45-degree angle line with that Flying Geese. And like I said, it's very tight. Sometimes you barely need to trim anything. Other times it depends on how you sew in your 1/4 inch seam. But this one is just a hair. So hold that down. Line it up. That's how I line it up. That's the first cut is that, whoop, but I just shifted. It does take a second. So there you can see hardly anything. There's a little bit less there, and you will find that. So then I rotate it over, and now let me zoom back out a little bit. Okay, so you're going to flip that. Oh, whoops. No, I already did that. Flip it over, and now's when the measuring comes in. You're going to take your ruler, and you're going to go to, let me see, it's easier to see it on this way. 4.5 inches. You're going to line that 4.5 inch line up with the top. And this works for any size Flying Geese unit, so just so you know, it's not, let me move that down just a little bit so you can see it better. Any size, you just have to get the measurements of what Flying Geese unit you're going to use. I don't have I didn't figure out exactly how much, the other measurements for the other size Flying Geese. I'm just doing it for this quilt. But if you do your measurements, there are lots of blog posts out there with those measurements on there. But let me just, you line up that 4.5 with the top with that nice, and then you're going to trim off the bottom. So you do lose a little bit of that gorgeous fabric. And that's what I love about this ruler. It works out really well. So you want it 8.5 inches across. And for this one, half of 8.5 is 4.25. So what I do is I line up one of the seams along the bottom, and then make sure this is at 4.25. You want to find that 4.25 mark right there, put it there, and make sure it's lined up across the bottom so you have a nice straight even block. Trim off the right side, and then now you go to that 8.5 inch mark on your ruler. I line it up on this side, and hopefully it lines up the top and the bottom, and it does. I do take my time with this step because if you do them, if you get a bunch that are wonky, it isn't so great. And then trim off this edge, and there you have it. Your Flying Geese unit. That's one of them. And then you're going to do that with the rest of the ones you did. So then you get 4 Flying Geese out of 1 10-inch square and 4 5¼ squares. And again, this is measures unfinished 8.5 by 4.5. So easy to do. Now, for the quilt that we're making today, you got to make a lot of them. In fact, it took me, I've done most of them. Actually, I've done all of them except this one for the video. But let me show you a couple of others. It takes a while. I will say it takes, the easy part is sewing them all together. The pain is trimming them. But hopefully you don't have to trim too much. Honestly, what I did is I put on a really good TV show, and I just, sort of for background noise, you put music, whatever, your favorite playlist, and you just start trimming them down. And it took like 2 afternoons. That was the only hassle with that. It takes me longer. I have problems with my right hand. So, but here, so you can see some of that gorgeous fabric goodness. Look at this. Oh, I love the colors in this collection. There you go. There's just 5 of the colors. There are 20 different ones in that line. But they're all right. So the geese are trimmed. I am ready to start sewing. Well, I'm not quite ready because I haven't decided on a pattern. Personally, I have, but you haven't decided on a pattern yet. So I'm going to show you just a quick little time lapse. I played over on my Electric Quilt 8 software with this. I was able to download this fabric scan. So I have this fabric with a black background, and I just wanted to play to see what different layouts would look like. I decided on a certain one, and I'll tell you about it in a second. So enjoy, and then decide on the layout you want to do when you're making your quilt. There are also lots of others. I just took a little while to play. Okay, so you've decided on your layout. In my case, and this is the one, if you're doing this one, it's simple, simple, simple. Basically, the first thing I do is I'm just going to pair up fabrics and start sewing them together. Let me pull those down so you can see them. Very easy to do. You use that, flip this over. They should fit really nicely. And the nice thing is you can use that. I used a yellow thread here. Let me move that down a little bit. You can use that point to help you with your points so you get nice sharp flying geese points. Those beaks on those flying geese need to be nice and sharp. And you're just going to sew a scant 1/4 inch, quilter's 1/4 inch down this seam right there. And you're going to repeat that with all of the flying geese. Now, the caveat here is it depends on what pattern you're doing. But that's what you do for my pattern is the one you're doing where they're just, each row is a different direction. You're just going to, the first thing you do is sew together pairs. Just to show you really quickly, I've done most of them. Here's one, and when I decide to sew them together, I honestly put them in a pile and just start picking. There's no rhyme or reason to the colors. My only rule, and it's my personal rule, it's just my my thing, I didn't want to have two colors to the same color together. So like I wouldn't sew those two together. That's my only thing. So if I pull out and it's the same color, then nope, I put it back and I choose another one. See, here's another one. You can see more of those gorgeous colors. So I'm going to do that with these 4. I've already done the rest of them, and then I'll show you what we do next. All right, so I pressed them all, and here's a pair of them. I sewed them together. There's one pair. You get the idea. Here's another one. They're so pretty with all those gorgeous fabrics. But basically, because of the pattern I chose the way the layout that I did. Basically, it's nice and easy, and it goes together really quickly. I also really love the look of it. It's really dynamic. It looks like movement, and that's one thing that's really nice about Flying Geese is how dynamic they look. But again, I'm doing one row pointing to the right and then one row pointing to the left. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead, excuse me. Okay, sorry about that. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and sew like these 2 units together. It's just going to go together more quickly because I'm going to do a bunch of pairs like this. So I'm going to pair up all of these that I've pressed. Let me just bring them over, big stack of them. And I'm just going to start pairing them up like this. So almost like I'm doing 2 rows at the same time, which is really nice because we have a lot. The nice thing is this is 16 flying geese across the quilt and then 10 flying geese down. So you have 160 flying geese all the way around. The nice thing is it's even numbers. So you can just pair these up. It goes a lot quicker that way. The one thing I did forget to mention is when you're pressing these blocks, I press towards the long side. Gives you a nice sharp point there. And that's another reason I chose this pattern because it comes together a lot easier. If you did it different ways, you'd have a lot more points. This has the seams here, and that's about it on this one. So that is what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start pairing these up. You definitely want to pin at that. They have nice nesting seams, and then you want to just take a peek. You hold it up a little bit so you make sure your points. I'm going to pin there. If you use that 1/4 inch, you should be okay. And I'm just going to sew along there. And then I'm going to press those. And I'm going to do that with all of these units. Make sure you're doing them all, the same way. Now, of course, I already just messed that up because I wanted there we go. I want my top row to go to the right and then my bottom row to go to the left. And then they'll be switching off every time. So there we go. I'm going to start sewing. And when I come back, you'll see a stack that look like this. Oh, I almost forgot. My other rule, and again, these are just mine. I'm kind of weird that way. I like to make my own little rules for myself. When there are groups of 4 like this, I'm also going to try not to have the same colored fabric in those 4 together. It's probably going to be impossible getting late. The longer you do this, the bigger the units get. You just can't do it anymore. But for right now, I'm going to try and make sure that there aren't any 2 fabrics that are the same in those pairs. All right, we're rolling right along. Now I've done these 2 units. Hopefully you can see them. Look how pretty they're looking. That fabric, that summer twilight is so pretty. It just glows with the black. So let me see. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and join some more. If possible, I'm going to try and not have any of the same fabrics. I think at this point it's going to be pretty much impossible. Let me move that down a little bit. You're just going to now you're going to make units of 4, nice and easy. And you're going to do that. You can just see we're just building these out. It's very easy. I love the quilts like this that just don't take a ton of fabric, are pretty easy to sew together. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going, and then I'll show you the next unit, although it's getting bigger, so I might be standing up and holding it after this. It's too big for the table now. All right, we are moving along. Look how pretty these are looking together. Here we go, they're coming together. So I actually was able to adjust the camera so you could see it a little bit better. Here's another one. You can just see the gorgeousness of this fabric. I did end up having a couple. I knew that would happen where the bigger they get with the more fabrics, there's just no way you can get them all separate, different. But anyway, so next up, we are going to, let me move these out of the way. We're going to join two sections like this. All right, here we go. This is half of one row, or what I'm considering one row. You can see how these fabrics are just twinkling with that black background. What I'm going to do is grab another one off the floor. And then what I'll do is I'm going to add that together. And this will be sort of one row of 5. You'll see when it comes together. Now, the one thing I will try to do, again, I'm going to try so that these two colors here aren't matching. That's my only thing. So like, if I had done it this way, they aren't matching, but they're pretty close. So that's just personal preference. But this is it. This will be then one of the rows across. All right, we are getting there. I'm going to show you a picture on the screen because I can't possibly show you the whole strip here. This is one of the rows. I'm just going to pull it along. Look at that fabric goodness. I said it at the beginning of this video. What I love about doing this, it's a scrappy Flying Geese. It's so easy, and if you noticed, I don't even worry about the colors that much. The only thing I do worry about is if they're right next to each other, and if they end up being next to each other, that's okay too. But it's just no fuss, no muss, not a ton of thinking, like laying out blocks and making sure, that they're the right way and everything. It's just one of those fun, easy projects. I am doing this actually. Even with filming this, I am sewing this whole thing. Now I didn't assemble the geese, but I'm sewing the whole top together. It's been about, like 2.5, 3 hours. That's it. Again, I've mentioned before, the geese take the long part. So the next thing I'm going to do is sew the rows together. There are 5 rows. Well, they're actually 10, but I'm going to call this one row. It's because I sewed these two together. But we're going to do some the long edge, lots of pinning, lots of sewing. But when you're done, you are going to have a gorgeous top. All right, so here it is. I'm going to show you a picture of the whole thing on my screen just so you get a feel for the whole thing because I can't show you the whole thing here. One more look at a different angle. Now this is just the top. I will quilt this with, I will use black batting. Let me just show you what that is really quickly. I got an awesome bag of queen size Hobbs batting. They have a great black, which is perfect for this quilt. And I'm debating on the back if I want to have a pattern like another Island Batik on the back. Or I do have a lot of black fabric, so I may just make it black on the back. I haven't decided. And I haven't decided also if I'm going to quilt it or I'm going to send it out to my long armor to quilt it. So a couple decisions still to go. I do hope you give this pattern a try. It's lots of fun. I hope by the time I do this video that I have the finished quilt so you can actually see what it looks like when it's quilted and everything, but I think you get the idea. I did do another video with a stack of 10-inch pre-cuts. That's been, a lot of people love that one. They made half square triangles out of it. It turned out really beautifully, and I'll have a link to that as well at the end of this video. Thank you so much to Island Batik for providing the fabric and the batting for this, and Hobbs Batting for providing the batting. I just cannot wait to finish this one. I love the way this one turned out. I love making quilts with pre-cuts, so like I said, check out the other one. I have some other projects on my website, and this pattern is free. It is on my website, www.createwithclaudia.com. You can download the PDF and make yourself a quilt like this, or one of the other layouts that I showed you on my Electric Quilt 8, or if you have a whole other way, you can do that way too. It doesn't really matter, and that's what the beauty of quilting with these pre-cuts is. You can just have a little bit of fun and play, and that's always fun for me. I like to sort of mess around with different layouts and things like that. I appreciate you watching. Again, I hope to have a picture. I don't think I'm going to make it this time because I have a deadline on this quilt and I need to finish it. So I'm not sure if by the time I get this video out that it will be quilted. Fingers crossed it will be. So if you see a couple pictures at the end, then you know that I did it. If not, well, then I'll have pictures definitely on my Instagram, which is Create with Claudia, or my Facebook account too. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.